So it begins.
I want to open up by sharing a thought process I was having on the way over. As I was driving over to check up on the plants, I thought about stopping at the native plant nursery. It makes me feel good to add native plants to the area, and we're entering the rainy season. It's a great time to do it. And always the debate in my mind is, whether the goats are there. Sometimes I tell myself, maybe this year they're not going to do it. Maybe someone realized something. Maybe they don't have the budget. Maybe someone got smart. And this is always what happens. I get there and I'm disappointed. And I realize it's a good thing I didn't stop and pick up some native plants because they would get immediately destroyed. So this is my first filming of the goats on this hillside. This is the hillside I've been watching carefully for the last 6 years, and I'm opening up by showing that this is coyote brush, and this is what goats do to coyote brush. And it's not just terrible for the plant. You need to look at the surrounding area. You need to absorb just how clear it is that the goats prioritize killing, eating, mortally wounding the native plants, while the area is still full of the problem plants that the goats have been brought there to deal with. Now, bear in mind that supposedly these goat grazing programs promote native plants and cut down on the invasive plants. I've addressed this over and over and over again in my videos, and so I won't spend too much time on it now. Let me just show you some of the other coyote brush that the goats haven't reached yet. And by the time I come back, that'll be barren. That'll be basically murdered. Consider how many goats are there. Consider the area that they are fenced into. And then consider how much of the problematic weeds you still see there, while the native plant has just been annihilated. Clearly, that's what they went to first. Clearly, they prioritized exactly what they aren't supposed to be prioritizing. What else is worth pointing out? Well, all the way down at the bottom of the hill, I called out, there's not going to be anyone there. There's not going to be anyone supervising. There's not going to be anything special about this. There's not going to be any expert. The herder, the supervisor, whatever you want to call them, no one's going to be there. So call them whatever you want to, as long as you acknowledge that they're absent. And of course I was right, so I continued up the hill to where I expected to find the goat herder inside of his trailer. And there's the goat dog, whatever service this animal is providing over here. It's just a lonely animal doing nothing. And the goat herder is apparently inside the trailer, just as I predicted. But I also pointed out, by the way, I'm repeating everything that I said in the live video because the wind was just too intense for the microphone to pick it up. But if you want to watch the raw version, I have the raw version linked below. This is just the more succinct version. So I made a big deal about the goat herder not being there, but I also pointed out that it wouldn't have mattered if he was there. What was he going to do differently? What was he going to do differently if he was standing there? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. The only form of control you see here is an attempt to keep the goats off of the human walking path. Everything else is fair game. Everything else is going to be annihilated by the goats, to the extent that the goats are willing to annihilate it. That's it. That's it. There's nothing scientific. There's nothing that requires expertise. And I'm harping on that because I found out that there was a lawsuit, and these guys, who are probably not even legally allowed to be working here, actually demanded more pay. because of the hours that they put in out there. Well, if you want to count them sleeping inside the trailer or sleeping under the trees and watching soccer, I guess you do have to consider overtime. Ah, yes, I also thought it was worth pointing out how easy it was to get the goats to follow me. All I had to do was walk a direction, and they would go the direction I was going. Walk the other way, they'd walk the direction I was going again. Point being, let's stop pretending like there's some sort of a special skill involved or some sort of a special connection that these people have with the goats. These are domesticated, working animals, and they know their drills. Now, this first shot down at the bottom of the hill, I was just pointing out that 6 years have gone by, and the city will not remove this wire, this abandoned wire, this hazard that has tall weeds growing up through it. They'll mow around it, they'll weed whack around it, they'll graze around it, but they won't remove it. Humans just have strange priorities. Why not just get rid of the hazard? It's a human hazard, it's a wildlife hazard, it's an eyesore. Haul it out of there. And God knows how much money you're spending on the stupid goat grazing program. Pay someone a little bit more money and get rid of the freaking litter left behind by the ranchers. I did get some shots of the other coyote brush in the area for the record, and just shots of the area in general to compare to before and after the goat annihilation. And one more thing, the wind. The wind was really cold, really wet. I mean, I couldn't use any of the audio because it was so intense, but I just wanted to point out that these animals have no choice in the amount of the elements that they're exposed to. I remember years ago when it started hailing and the wind was blowing sideways, and I climbed over the hill to the other side and found some reprieve. I was still outside, I was still in the elements, but it was a big difference. And I just thought about the small detail. These animals can't improve where they are. They're just fenced in. And I find the corpses of these animals by the abusive company Goats R Us every single year. That poor coyote brush. So remember, everybody, you see the little bits of coyote brush that still exist? Say goodbye to those. And let me point out that despite the green coyote brush now barren and branches broken, that there's plenty of the invasive fire fuel standing right next to it.